Hey everybody, you're watching 5 Minute Web Dev, and this is another episode in our series, 5 Minute CSS. Today's topic is the box sizing property. If you haven't watched my video on the box model, then I'd recommend you go and watch that and then come back here, as it's going to give you some necessary background info to help you understand the box sizing property. If you continue on, I'm going to assume you already have a grasp on the box model. All right, let's begin. So as you can probably guess, the box sizing property has to do with the box model. It actually alters the default box model and how it calculates the width and height of elements. There are two values that the box sizing property can accept: content box and border box. Content box is the default value given to all elements. With a box sizing value of content box, the element's box model will follow the default width and height calculations as explained in my video on the box model. The value that we're really interested in today is border box. When an element has a box sizing value of border box, the padding and border sizes will be accounted for in the values you set for the element's width and height property. If that doesn't make sense yet, don't worry, it will in a minute. Let's jump into some code and let's see why this is awesome. All right, guys, here we go. So I have this HTML file set up for us. It has a container, it has a row, and it has 3 columns here. Each column is going to take up 1/3 of our row. And they're going to sit next to each other, and we don't want any of them to overflow onto the next line, okay? That's going to be our goal. It's going to be a pretty common thing that you run into when laying out a website, and you're going to see how setting your stuff to box sizing border box can help, okay? Now, let me scroll down here really quick. We see our container has a max width and it's centered. Our row takes up 100% width of the container, and our columns are set to display inline blocks so they line up next to each other. Let's go ahead and add a width and make them each 1/3 of the row's width. Let's add a height. They're going to be 200 pixels. Let's refresh, and it should do what we want it to do. We have our row here. We have each column, and it looks like they're each taking up 1/3, and they're all next to each other. That's perfect, right? Well, what happens if we start doing stuff like adding padding? Or let's add a 1 pixel border as well. What's going to happen? It's going to drop to the next line. Why did that happen? Well, we know how the default box model works, and right now, we're using the default box model because the box sizing property on our columns by default is set to content box. I don't need to type that out. That's just what it is. But just so you guys can see it, it's set to content box. So our padding size and our border size are being added to our width and our height. In this case, the width is what we're concerned about. The issue with that is it's making it each of them wider than 1/3, than 33.3333%. And thus, they're overflowing, and one of them is going to get dropped off of that row because it no longer fits inside that row. What's the fix for this? Well, it's easy. You guys probably know what it is. Box sizing, border box. What that's going to do is it's going to basically turn our width and our height values into the max that they can do, that the whole element can equate to. So our width of basically 1/3 is going to include our padding size and our border size in it. So when we go over here to our elements, we see this is taking up 1/3, this is taking up 1/3, this is taking up 1/3. Each column is, but they still have the padding that we set and the border that we set. In my opinion, box sizing border box makes the box model so much easier to reason about, and it makes way more sense than the default box model, than content box. A lot of people think the same thing, and so much so that they say, a lot of experts say you should set all of your elements to be border box by default. Bootstrap does this, for instance. If I'm correct, Foundation does this, for instance. These big CSS frameworks, they do this. So there's some merit to it. And I would agree. So let's go over that really quick, how to do that, how to set everything to border box by default. The naive way is just to select everything and set it to border box. The problem is you might have an element that you want to set to content box. Easy enough. You just set that element's box sizing property to content box. But what if there's nested elements inside of here? They will still be border box. And so you'd have to go through and write CSS for each one of those elements. More CSS than you have to make sure that they're content box. Another way to do it that's a little bit smarter is to use inheritance. So let's get rid of this naive way. We're going to set border box on the HTML element only. And then everything else is going to inherit its parent's box sizing property. So if its parent is content box, it'll be content box. If its parent is border box, it'll be border box. These two lines will make everything border box by default. This line will make everything inside content box element content box, unless we specify otherwise. So that's a really simple but common example of how box sizing affects laying out your elements, and how border box in particular can make it a lot easier. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching 5 Minute Web Dev. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment letting me know what other topics you'd like me to cover in the future. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next time.